your access, you're a major player, Freedom Caucus, et cetera. You have some better knowledge than I would have of the capacity of these 30,000-pound bombs, bunker busters we're dropping. And it seems even 300 feet below the ground, being hit with multiple sorties of those, Congressman, it stands to reason there's got to be a significant disruption there. It's just common sense on this.
Yeah, it should be common sense. Look, we probably all, as our parents' objections, played with fireworks or firecrackers when we were young. And the point I want to make is if you conceal or restrict an explosion, which is what we're talking about, inside of a can or something, you can just picture the devastation. So you know, it can't. It's restricted from exploding up because now it's, you know, hundreds of feet into the ground. This explosive, and there's a cavity in the ground, which is the nuclear facility. Where do you think the effects of the explosion are going to go? There, you know, I mean, I'm not an explosive expert, but just knowing what I know from doing things my parents told me not to do as a child and then doing things in the military, I can tell you the effects are, well, let me just say this. None of the people that are currently criticizing the president right now would have volunteered to be in any of those facilities last Sunday night.
Yeah, and the thing that gets me, probably you too, you've been on many times and we've talked about it, the world allowed them in a test of will to say, we're going to do this 300 feet below the ground. We're not up to anything, and you're not going to do anything about it. Thank God we have this weaponry. What would we do otherwise?
That's exactly right. You know, Israel was doing what it could, but there's only one country on the planet that has the weapon. There's only one country on the planet that has the delivery system. And unfortunately, other than President Trump's maximum pressure campaign the last time he was in office, and his decisive action taken this time has been any different than all other administrations previously, who wouldn't even characterize Iran's military nuclear program as a nuclear military program. Iran said it was for peaceful purposes, and that's why we're hiding it hundreds of feet under a mountain, you know, and won't let any inspectors come in, particularly Americans. But trust us, it's completely peaceful, and don't mind the fact that we're the largest state sponsor of terrorism on the globe.
Were you surprised at all, too? Hegseth talked about this today, so I wanted to, with you, give an opportunity, and our listeners are all on board, but I still think it's necessary, of the length of the flight, 37 hours, and the things that were involved, and the false signal we sent in order to get this flight through. It is remarkable. We just can't say enough, not just about the technology, but the skill and courage they don't know what they're going to run into of the pilots and others aboard the planes.
Yeah, it's absolutely breathtaking. You look at the capability of the United States military and, of course, the people that serve in uniform that plan for and then carry out these missions. And, of course, we spend a lot of tax dollars on our military, but let's face it, they deceived everybody. And you got to know that there were press standing outside of the base in Missouri day after day waiting to see one of those B-2s take off. They deceived the world. They deceived Iran. They flew around the world, conducted the strike, and then came back home. No Americans were lost. And I got to say this. Look, the president is, I think at this point, he should be known as a guy who is seeking peace, who's not seeking confrontation, but seeks stability and relationships, understanding different nations' viewpoints. But this is a minimum of casualties. Like, I don't even know what the casualty count is in Iran right now, because I suspect they pulled most of their people out suspecting that sooner or later something was going to happen, President Trump being unpredictable in that way. I just don't know if people understand the scale of what has been accomplished and what precision, what cost, and what lack of cost, and that is the loss of lives. How you change the planet, how you change history without losing an American life. The most we lost was some fuel, some flight time, and a few meals probably back and forth for the air crews and the crews that put this whole thing together. It is astounding.
I'm so glad to have you on with your background to underline that. Now, that was the easy part. The hard part I wanted to talk to you about is the big, beautiful bill and these people over on the Senate side who might pass something, but it doesn't look like it's anywhere near what the House has.
It is being degraded minute by minute in the Senate. And look, I just got to say this because I really don't understand it. I want people working with me and for me that I can trust, just like you would in a business or anything else. And it's not to say that other people aren't capable, what have you. But unfortunately, we live in a partisan system here in the United States of America, and you can't have the person that Harry Reid hired calling the balls and strikes on your bill that no Democrats are interested in supporting or interested in being a part of. And the Democrat parliamentarian has essentially said none of the major components of this bill are allowed. And I don't understand why don't we just ask Chuck Schumer if we could pass this bill and let him, take a pencil or a pen and say, I'm going to allow this and not allow that. That's essentially what's happening in the Senate. And I don't know if they're going to send it back to us and expect us to vote on that. But obviously, we want the taxes not to go up. That's a major part of the bill. We want to fund our military and the Department of Homeland Security. But here's the other thing we want. We want to stop funding people that are here illegally,
right,
on whether it's on free meals or whether it's on Medicaid or whatever we decide. We're the representatives of the people, and we're supposed to govern. And this person who's unelected and was chosen by the opposition party is now telling us that we can only govern as long as she says it's okay to.
Well, Jeff Van Drew was just on. Put on your legal hat. He said they don't have to follow what she says.
They don't have to follow it. But here's the difference between Republicans and Democrats. When Democrats want to do something and the rules prohibit it, they either make new rules or they just go around the rules and change the paradigm. Republicans always feel like we have to walk this narrow path so that we can, go over and claim the moral high ground. And then when Democrats are in charge, there is no moral high ground. I would submit to you that nobody elected the parliamentarian. They expect these things to be done because they elected President Trump. They elected a Republican Senate, including a new Pennsylvania Republican senator, and they don't want some unelected bureaucrat that was selected by Harry Reid 20 years ago to determine the fate of the country.
Absolutely. Now, I'm more in your position maybe than some in the House in that, as I understand, last time we talked, I think you'd be okay with the Medicaid, the way the Senate's gone about it. I think they're narrowing it in more to where I want it to be. But, of course, they're allowing the green subsidies in there. So on the Medicaid part, does Scott Perry, are you in sync with that?
Well, I think I was in sync with where it was headed, but it's my understanding that the parliamentarian has disallowed any of it. So,
who is this person?
The money laundering that the states were doing is now going to continue. Now, the Green New Scam, the so-called Inflation Reduction Act that every single Republican voted against, needs to be dealt with, and I'm completely with the president. We ought to repeal it completely, every single bit of it. Unfortunately, we're having a fight within our own party over it because what has happened is over the course of time is now subsidizing what are oftentimes traditional supporters of the Republican Party. But I'm not for giveaways and for tax credits and for subsidies for oil companies any more than I am for any other energy development operation. So we have to get rid of it. And look, right now, Pennsylvania's experienced some of the hottest days that it's had in a long time. And we are at very close, and you should probably know this, at grid failure. And the reason that's happening is because we're funding and subsidizing inefficient and unreliable energy sources, and the ones that are reliable and efficient are being taken offline over and over again. And what's going to happen is at some point you're going to be given an order or a request to cut back your usage, which will then be followed by blackouts and brownouts. We're in the 21st century. We don't have to live like this. This is a choice. It's in the bill, and we need to address it in this bill.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. So is it your educated guess sitting here hearing you, Jeff Van Drew, guys that I respect? This is going to be difficult to reconcile all this by July 4th.
I think it is going to be very, very difficult. I don't think it's impossible. We're ready to do the work, but I will tell you, I'm not encouraged to go vote to bankrupt my country and my constituents and leave a lot of subsidies and tax credits and grifting in place for billionaires and foreign countries and a few special interest lobbyists around town here. And if that's all that's left of the bill, I think we have significant headwinds in front of us. Congressman,
thank you. Have a good weekend, and let's see what we do next week. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. God bless you. Thank you.